first of all, I want to share a story with you. Let us watch the clip first, and then I will share the story. Let us watch together.
Tonight, new video of the heart-stopping moments a gunman walks into Pauls Valley High School in Oklahoma. You can see a pistol in hand. But watch what unfolds next. Principal Kirk Moore in the blue shirt emerging from another door and tackling the suspect, identified by police as 20-year-old Victor Hawkins, a former student of the school. Just feet away, you can see a young person slip out during Moore's fast-acting efforts. Authorities say the principal was shot in the chaos, but managed to get the suspect to drop the gun.
As you see the video, recently there was a story about school principal in Oklahoma in the States. When a dangerous situation occurred, the principal, he did not run away. Instead, he went toward the danger to protect his students. He knew it was risky. He knew he could lose his life. And in fact, he was injured while stopping the attacker. But because of his action, many students were saved. Yes, this was not just bravery. This was love in action. Love in action. Can you believe it? It was not an easy decision. In this world, most people try to avoid loss. Most people try to protect themselves first. Very few will risk their lives for others. To be honest, if I were in his position, even as a pastor, I might hesitate. I might pause. I might think about my own safety first. But the principal, he didn't. He acted. He showed his love through action. Especially when we read the Bible, we see that this kind of life is not new. Throughout the scripture, we found many people who devoted themselves not for their own safety, but for others and for God. They live by faith. They love through action. Especially today's passage shows us the same truth. The woman did not hesitate. She did not calculate the cost. She did not hold back. She gave everything to Jesus. That is love in action. That is faith in action. So today, let us meditate together. What does it mean to truly believe? What does it mean to truly love? Not just in the words, but in action. So let us reflect on this passage together. So let us read Matthew chapter 26 and verse 13. Ready, go. At the time, Jesus visited a house in order to serve other people. It was the house of Simon the leper in Bethany. Especially, there was a woman named Mary there. In the midst of a crowd, Mary took an action toward Jesus. So what was the action? Let us read Matthew chapter 26 and verse 7. Ready, go. The woman came up to him with an alabaster flask of very expensive ointment, and she poured it on his head as reclined at table. Yet she decided to pour the alabaster flask to Jesus' head as her offering. As you can see the picture, she decided to pour the alabaster flask to Jesus' head as her offering. Especially this alabaster flask was very expensive. For example, this oil was worth more than 300 denarii. It was about 1 year's wages for an ordinary person. Likewise, this oil, it It was very expensive and precious oil. However, the woman did not hesitate to use it to offer Jesus. Can you believe it? It wasn't expensive. She could have prepared a cheaper one and saved money for herself. Nevertheless, she gave her to Jesus. She gave her to Jesus. Can you say it together? Her to Jesus. Especially it was her love in action. She showed her love by offering the precious alabaster flask to Jesus. It was not waste at her. If I were in her place again, honestly, I might hesitate. I might pause and think carefully. I might even check my bank account and calculate how much I can afford to give to God. I might say, maybe I should give a little, not everything. Maybe I should keep some for myself, just in case. However, this woman did something completely different. She did not calculate. She did not hesitate. She did not hold back. She gave everything to Jesus. So let us reflect together. How about you? When it comes to your time, your resource, your heart, do you calculate first or do you trust and give? Can you offer her to Jesus? Can you think about it? Can you offer her? This is not just about money. It is about our whole life, our love, our devotion, and our priorities. Nothing given to God is ever wasted. Money used for God's work is not wasted money. Love poured out for Jesus is never in vain. Even if it seems like we are losing something now, God sees it, God remembers it. And in His time, we'll find again with greater blessing. Therefore, the world may say, that's too much, but faith says, or to Jesus. However, to the disciples, what she did looked like a waste. For example, let us read Matthew chapter 26 and verse 9. Ready, go. For this could have been. From their perspectives, it seemed more reasonable and more practical to sell the expensive perfume and use the money to help the poor. In their minds, they were having a better use of resources. In other words, they were evaluating the situation through human logic, through efficiency, usefulness, and visible impact. But they completely missed the her behind her action. They did not see her love. They did not understand her devotion. They did not recognize the spiritual meaning of what she was doing. However, Jesus responded with a completely different perspective. While the disciples focused on calculation, Jesus focused on devotion. While the disciples saw waste, Jesus saw worship. Especially Jesus reminds them that opportunity to do good, like helping the poor, are always present. There will always be chance to serve, to give, and to care for others. In fact, those who truly have a heart to do good will never lack opportunities. But what this woman did was unique. It was special. She recognized who Jesus is. She understood the moment. She responded with wholehearted love. Therefore, this teaches us something important. Not all acts are measured the same way. Some acts are constant like daily service. But some moments are sacred opportunities. Moments where we are called to give our very best to Jesus without hesitation. The woman chose love, and Jesus affirmed her. So what was the response of Jesus? Let us read verse 10 together. Ready, go. But Jesus, aware of this, said to them, why do you trouble the woman? For she has done a beautiful thing. For she has done a beautiful thing. Likewise, Jesus immediately defended the woman. While the disciples criticized her, Jesus protected her. While they call it waste, Jesus called it beautiful things. Can you say together? Beautiful things. Yes, her action was not meaningless. It was not wasted. In the eyes of Jesus, it was a good work, a beautiful act of love and devotion. In the eyes of Jesus, it was a good work, a beautiful act of love and devotion. So what is the reason? Let us read verse 13, our passage today. Ready, go. Truly I say to you, whenever this gospel is proclaimed in the whole world, a shed stone will also be told in memory of her. Here we find the reason why Jesus called it beautiful things. What seemed foolish to the disciples will become memorable to the world. Her act did not make sense at that moment, but in God's plan, it will never be forgotten. To be specific, Jesus declares that wherever the gospel is preached, her story will be told. That means her act of love is now part of the gospel story itself. Her offering became her memorial. But there is something even deeper. Let us read verse 12 together. Ready, go. In pouring this ointment on my body, she has done it to prepare me for burial. Especially this reveals the true meaning of her action. At the time, bodies are anointed with oil before burial. Without fully praying, Jesus showed that her act has spiritual significance. She was preparing him for his death. While the disciples misunderstood and even forgot Jesus' repeat teaching about his suffering and crucifixion, this woman responded in faith. She believed, she understood, she acted. Her love was not only emotional, it was faith-filled. Also, when Matthew used the word memory, he used the Greek term memosino. It is related to the idea of a memorial offering, something present before God and remembered by him. In the same way, her act became like a spiritual offering, something lifted up to God and something remembered forever. The disciples saw loss, Jesus saw love. The disciples saw waste, Jesus saw worship. And even today, we are doing exactly what Jesus said. Yes, we are remembering her. So why do we remember her? Because she gave her to Jesus. However, there is something even deeper in this passage. Jesus did not remember her only because of her action, but because of her faith in him. Let us read verse 7 one more time together. Ready, go. In pouring this ointment on my body, she has done it to prepare me for burial. As I mentioned before, at that time, it was a common custom to anoint a body with oil in preparation for burial and funeral. Normally, this would happen after a person had died, but this woman did it before Jesus' death. So why? Because she believed him. Especially Jesus had already foretold his suffering, crucifixion, and resurrection. Also, the disciples had heard these words many times. They had walked with Jesus and learned from Jesus and witnessed his ministry. However, the disciples, they did not fully understood. They did not respond. They did not act. They did not believe it. However, this woman was different. She listened carefully and she remembered his words and she believed. That's why she acted. Her pouring of ointment was not only an act of love, it was an act of faith. While the disciples were focused on what seemed like waste money, she was responding to the truth of Jesus' mission. While they were thinking practically, she was acting spiritually. Her act of faith and love became an eternal memorial. It is recorded in scripture. It is proclaimed wherever the gospel is preached. It will never be forgotten. That's why we remember her today. No human recognition lasts forever, but what is done for Christ in faith is remembered eternally. Jesus also deepened her immediately. He rebuked the disciple and honored her devotion. This shows something important. Jesus protects and values those who truly love him. Nothing given to Jesus in love is ever wasted. Her act filled the house with fragrance, but more than that, it has filled the world with testimony. Her devotion brought joy to the heart of Jesus. It became a blessing not only in that moment, but for our generations. So today, we have maintained the story of love in action. This woman did not hesitate. By faith, she offered her alabaster flask, something incredibly precious, to Jesus. And because of that, Jesus remembered her, not only for what she did, but for the faith behind it. However, this story does not end there. It's not just a story of the minor. It is a story that calls us to live as Christians. All to Jesus. Can you say it together? One more time. All to Jesus. Yes, just as a woman offers something worth the whole year's wages to Jesus by faith, we are also called to give to him. Of course, we are not called to bring a literal alabaster flask, but we are called to bring something even greater. Our hearts, our lives, our faith. Can you say it together? Our hearts, our lives, our faith. God is not looking for expensive things. God is looking for genuine faith. That is why the woman did not hesitate. She trusted in Jesus. She believed his word and she acted. She became a faithful servant, not because she had something valuable, but because she had faith. In the same way, God desires our faith today. When we decide to follow Jesus, we are called to continue in that faith, not just once, but daily. Think about your life. There may be moments when it does not make sense. There may be times when we do not fully understand. There may be situations where following Jesus feels costly. Have you ever felt like that? But even then, God is not asking for perfect understanding. He's asking for faith. So can you say together, ready, go? A faith that trusts Him, a faith that obeys Him, a faith that gives everything to Him. So today, let us respond like the woman, not with hesitation, but with wholehearted devotion, not with calculation, but with faith. Because in the end, a life given fully to Jesus is never wasted or to Jesus. For example, I want to share my story again. Especially I want to show my picture. The first one is my pastoral ordination ceremony. In the summer of 2021, I was ordained as a pastor in the Christian Mission Alliance from the state's Korea district. At that moment, I made a clear decision before God. I will submit my life to the Lord. At that time, I was serving in a mega church here in Korea. Everything was stable. Everything seemed serious. But right after my ordination, I made a decision that did not seem easy or even reasonable to many people. Yes, I decided by faith. I decided to plant English worship church here in Seoul. At the time, many pastors advised me not to do it. They said it will be difficult. They said it will be risky. And they were not wrong. But still, I chose to submit myself to the Lord. Just as the woman in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 26 surrendered her most precious possession to Jesus, I also wanted to surrender my life to Him. That is how our ordinary church began in 2021. And by God's grace, this coming September will mark our 5th anniversary and we will celebrate together. Can you give thanks to God? But the journey has not been easy. As you know, Gia, right? Gia has been with us 5 years. There were no guarantees. There were financial struggles. Even as I opened a cafe, there were still challenges and uncertainties. From a human perspective, it could look like a risk, even like a waste. But I can say this with confidence. It is not waste. It is not waste. Because anything given to Jesus is never wasted. I believe that God is using me in our church and our congregation, even the cafe, for His glory. Therefore, let us remind our church vision statement once again. Ready, go. God does extraordinary work through ordinary people of God. Yes, I still believe this statement. Whenever I want to testify to the truth, God works through faith. God works when we surrender. When we give ourselves fully to God, God does things beyond what we can imagine. Like just today. I can't believe you guys here from Kenya. Let us give thanks to God again. Just like the woman who gave everything to Jesus, when you choose to give birth to Him, God can do extraordinary things through our ordinary lives. So in the same way, God is calling us today, not necessarily to do the same thing, but to have the same heart. A heart that does not hold back. A heart that trusts Him fully. A heart that says all to Jesus. Let us not be controlled by fear of results. Let us not be paralyzed by uncertainty. Instead, let us surrender to Jesus and trusting that He is faithful. Because in the end, a life surrendered to Him will never waste it. However, there is one more important truth, and we must remember in this story. It is not only about faith. It is about the object of our faith. So who is the object of our faith? Yes, it is God. Our faith must be in Him, not in ourselves, and not in the opinions of others. While I was maintaining on this passage and preparing this message, I had to repent to God because I realized something uncomfortable. In this story, Jesus chose to remember the woman's face. What mattered most was not what people thought about her, but that Jesus recognized her. She did not act to be seen by the crowd. She did not act to gain approval from others. She acted for Jesus alone. But when I examined my own heart, I found something different. I realized that sometimes I want to be recognized by people. For example, last week there was a Christian market event here at our Ordinary Cafe, last Friday and yesterday. While preparing the Little Christian market event, I found myself wanting others to notice me and recognize my work, my cafe, and what I was doing. I even tried to show it through social media. Of course, there is nothing wrong with informing people or inviting them, but my heart was exposed. I was not only doing for God, I also wanted recognition from others. This is something very common. People naturally desire recognition. Do you agree? Even in human psychology, such as the ideas of Abraham Maslow, he said that recognition and esteem are seen as deep human needs. But as Christians, we are called to live differently. We are not living for the applause of other people. We are living for the approval of God. The woman in this story understood this. She did not seek the recognition of the disciples. She did not try to impress the crowds. She only desired one thing, that Jesus would receive her offering. And Jesus did more than receive it. He remembered it. And her act became an eternal memorial. In the same way, we are called to keep our faith in God, not for recognition from people, but for a life that is pleasing to God. It is all by God's grace. So let us continue to fix our eyes on God, not on the world, not on people, and not on our circumstance. Let us live by faith and seeking His approval above all else. So let me ask you a final question, everyone. Are you ready to give all to Jesus by faith? Yes. All to Jesus? Let us surrender to God. Fix our eyes on God. Can you lead us together? Ready, go? All to Jesus. Let us surrender to God. Fix our eyes on God.